In this video, we're going to use Blender to turn a 2D image into a 3D model and prepare the model for 3D printing. First, I will add a reference image, then add a sphere to start sculpting. Now I'll change to sculpting mode and start blocking out the character. In sculpting mode, by pressing R, you can change the resolution of the mesh. With Shift R, you can remesh the object, applying the new resolution. During the first stage, I'll be using mostly the grab brush to block out the character. During this part of the process, I'll keep the resolution of the mesh very low, just trying to follow the reference image and creating the basic shape of the character. To make the blocking out stage easier, you can use the annotation tool to draw the outline of the character. I use the clay brush to carve the eye sockets, then add a sphere, rotate and position the eye sockets. Now I start blocking out the rest of the body by adding another sphere for the torso and 2 spheres for the legs. Add a mirror modifier for the legs. Now I can start increasing the resolution, and using the clay brush, I start adding more detail to the sculpture. I want the front legs to be asymmetrical like in the reference, so I will apply the mirror modifier, and in edit mode, press P and separate by loose parts. Next, I will finish modeling the eyes in editing mode by moving the loop cuts. At the center, I will use the grid fill option and add a subdivision modifier. Now I will add more spheres and start modeling the tongue and the teeth. I start modeling the flower by adding a sphere and scaling in the Z-axis. To create the crown, I will add a circle with 24 vertices and press Z to extrude. By using the select option, I can give the model the crown shape like in the reference. Now I'll add a path, duplicate it, and in the geometry options, I'll add the copy as the object target. In edit mode, I can position the path. Using Alt S, I can change the radius of individual vertices. Now I can duplicate the path and position the other versions like in the reference. And finally, I'll add a mirror modifier. To make the leaves, first I'll add a plane. And in edit mode, using the knife tool, I'll cut the shape of the leaf. At the center, I can add a cylinder with a few loop cuts and a subdivision modifier. I'll add a solidify and a subdivision modifier to the leaf and finish modeling it. To position the leaf, I will add a path and a curve modifier to the objects, selecting the new path as a target. With that, I can just edit the path to pose the leaf how I want. Next, I will add a plane and start modeling the claws. At this point, I'll finish sculpting the main body of the model. I mostly use the clay and the smooth brush for the sculpting process, just changing to the crease brush to create some sharp corners. Using the Boolean modifier, I'm going to join all the parts of the main body and make sure there's no non-manifold geometry or internal faces. And then I'll finish the main body by smoothing out the division between the parts I connected. On the top part of the flower, I'll add a subdivision modifier and extract the vertices at the top. Selecting the top edges, I'll add a min crease around 0.2 and then scale the bottom part of the spikes. The inside portion I'll just extrude the vertices until it's close. Now convert the petals to mesh and add a solidify and a subdivision. And then add the cuts to the petals that you see in the reference by merging some of the vertices. Next, I'll add a plane and in edit mode, using the snap to face option, I'm going to model the line in the stain like in the reference. After finishing the line, I can extrude and add the subdivision and solidify modifiers, and repeat the same process for the other lines. I'll do the same for the white part of the flower, modeling using the snap to face option, and then adding a solidify modifier. Now, after applying the modifiers, we are left with some really high poly meshes. To reduce some of the vertices, I will use the decimate modifier with the collapse option. This option keeps the shape of the object more consistent. To export for 3D printing, it's not necessary to reduce the number of vertices, but if the quality is not affected, I rather the STL file to be lighter and to be faster to slice the model. After decimating the meshes, I can start joining all the objects using the boolean modifier while checking on edit mode for the existence of non-manifold vertices or interior geometry. If you want to separate the model to print in multiple parts, before joining the mesh, select the parts that will be touching each other, duplicate the model, and add a solidify modifier with offset 0, and the thickness will depend on your printer and your settings. In my case, I will use 0.18mm. Apply the modifier and edit mode, select one of the vertices and press Ctrl L to select all connected. Then press Ctrl I to invert selection and delete the interior geometry. With this object, I use the boolean modifier to cut a shape into the model. With the model finished, you can export as STL and load the file into your slicer of choice.